So much so that he can't take it anymore, and he once again disintegrates. Except this time it looks like that's for good. And now the game has shifted into complete computer graphics mode. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of Final Fantasy VII, the final cutscene. The live stream swirls around Cloud as if grateful for his efforts, because Sephiroth just wasn't welcome there. And those red wisps that came out were Sephiroth. Live stream? Yep, Sephiroth is finally allowed to join the live stream. You'd think that according to the music, that would be Aeris's hand come out to, you know, thank him, congratulate him on a job well done. But it's actually Tifa's hand. I was gonna snark a bit on how her glove was missing, but there it is again, now that Cloud is completely snapped out of it. Whoa! Well, that plan didn't go quite as imagined, did it, Tifa? I think I'm beginning to understand. What? An answer from the planet. Promised Land. I think I can meet her. There. Yes, let's go meet her. Even in a collapsing cavern, dangling for their lives, they still have kind of a nice, calm moment. Gotta love how the scripting in that goes sometimes. Hey, where is everyone? Hey! I'm glad you're all safe! They all seem to be safe too. But now what are we going to do? Well, they should be moving soon. And that means this place will... Oh, Lady Luck, don't fail me now. And so amazed by what he sees, he drops his cigarette. That's how you know Sid is completely dumbfounded. And down comes the high wind. I don't know if his junior pilots got really bold, or if Lady Luck right there is actually real and directed the high wind down there. By the way, what Nanaki was referring to was, you know, a blast of holy energy. I don't think it's going to be safe if you're in the barrel of a cannon when it fires. And there's the high wind getting ejected like out of a cartoon whale's blowhole. Curse! And if you ever fail, you can just always hit the reset button. Remember that from the old Final Fantasy VII commercial? But as we saw right there, we weren't even flying around in the High Wind's final form. That right there was the ultimate form. And now we go down to, I guess, Calm. So that's where Elmira took Marlene, the flower girl? Yes, that is Marlene, because what other little kid are we going to zoom in on? Okay, there seems to be a storm of apocalypse happening. Yeah, that doesn't look very healthy for the planet, Midgar in particular. Whipping up localized tornadoes. I can't help but feel that Majora's Mask was somewhat inspired by this imagery. Yeah, Holy, you can start moving whenever. And speak of the... well, not devil, rather the opposite. Holy power! That's encouraging. Although I expected Holy to be a blast of energy, not a shield. A shield that's getting slowly bored into. Holy, if you have a contingency, now's the time to use it. There's the Highwind's final form. Oh, do you see that magnet on Cloud's back? That is how he holds his sword on his back. Of course, that doesn't exactly match the concept art that proves this, but yes, it is a magnet on his back that holds his sword. And they are talking about the people in Midgar that are kind of not in a good position right here. Holy is having the opposite effect. Forget Midgar. You gotta worry about the planet. I have no idea what that means by Holy having the opposite effect. I think Holy is meant to just hold Meteor in place. But what actually gets rid of Meteor? Why, it's the little wisp of life stream that could. Now, I know it seems like a sentimental help from seemingly out of nowhere, but what's actually happening right now is the planet's response. Because remember, Cloud said, "Planet, let me hear what you let me hear your answer." What the hell is that? Life stream. So the planet itself could have been stepping in to stop Meteor, but I guess it wasn't so sure about it. Like, the planet, it just wanted itself to die because the people on the planet weren't so, you know, so helpful, so good. But the planet is now responding to our character's determinations and using its own life stream to attack Meteor. So while Holy is keeping Meteor in place, the planet itself is going to deliver that knockout punch. At least that's what we hope is going to happen. You know, nothing says intensity more than a little girl saying, "It's coming." And you know when the music gets uplifting and whimsical, that something good is happening. And we're not just talking a localized live stream. The entire planet is giving its all. How about that? Here it comes! And thus ends Final Fantasy VII, the revolutionary game of 1997 that changed the face of video games forever. That isn't to say that it is the best game in the world, or the best game that ever will be. Just put aside the hype and the anti-hype just for a moment to realize the impact that this game had at the time that it was created. This was a game that played and viewed like a big screen movie, and that really connected with worldwide audiences. The song you're hearing right now is Staff Roll, and there's a very special part of the song that I will point out when it comes. But just consider Final Fantasy VII for just the product. Whatever you may have heard from a reviewer, a website, your friend down the street. Just forget that. This Let's Play was a labor of love in more than one regard. I wanted to present Final Fantasy VII in, well, I wouldn't say an objective way. I'd say I'm biased more towards the game. But just giving you the impression of discovery, not trying to just see what the big deal is about in terms of all the media hype around it, but just going in and playing a game. And in terms of that, Final Fantasy VII is an excellent game. I mean, I could go back and play this game many, many times just to switch up strategies, see the story play out, and just go through the motions. And who knows? Maybe I am biased. Maybe I just can't look at it completely objectively. But I really don't care. When I played this game in 1997, it just completely blew me away. And that's the sort of impression I want to give all of you. That this game, for its time, was very far-reaching. So much care and attention went into it, and so much of the new technology was used in the right way. And it had a storyline that was pretty hard-hitting for the time. I mean, compared to what else you see from video games at that time. So, if anything, I just want everybody to come off with this impression of the game. That it tried really hard to be something great for the medium. And everyone, please stand for the national anthem of Final Fantasy. This song, by itself, is called Final Fantasy. It's been used as an intro, it has been used as an outro, but the fact remains that this song is Final Fantasy. The experience, the franchise, the phenomenon, the sensation, whatever you want to call it. And the thing about Final Fantasy VII was, compared to the previous 6 installments, 7 was so much more different. Was so much different. All the other Final Fantasies have this medieval fantasy vibe to it. And Final Fantasy VI was, but still had things like castles and kings and all that. But Final Fantasy VII seemed to be a more modern take on the formula, the stories, just everything Final Fantasy. And in that way, it was so much different, but it was so much the same, because you had those little touches, the Phoenix Downs, the potions, the chocobos, all the familiar spells, and that Final Fantasy quality, and the storylines, which I'm not even going to talk about anything after this, in terms of the storyline and the character development. Final Fantasy VII, you can debate to one end of the earth to the other, whether it's better or worse than this or that, but I still find it a worthy successor to the legacy that's behind it. I mean, everybody was just so enraptured by this, and the world was such a left field for Final Fantasy fans. Sorry, I'm just getting goosebumps and tearing up a little bit hearing this. my nostalgia goggles are just fully on for this. I can talk about this game objectively later, but for right now, I'm just so glad this game exists. Life is too short to be hung up on certain things. And long enough for you to experience so much greatness. And who is to say that that was the end of the game? 500 years later, you can see that the planet is still there. And who is that running along with his own two little nannikies? Don't question it. Just be so happy to see this. Realistically speaking, nobody who was alive during the ending of Final Fantasy VII should be alive right now, but Naniki isn't human. That opens up all the options, outcomes, possibilities. And there's Midgar, completely overgrown with nature. I don't know if humans have been wiped out from the planet, or if the humans just vacated Midgar and the ideals it represented. Final Fantasy VII. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Final Fantasy VII. And of course, it can't be a Final Fantasy game without the classic tune. The rolling, mystical feeling tune. And while we are in this serene screen, I would like to give a little more emphasis and talk about a previous topic I had mentioned before, and that is on the state of Final Fantasy VII as a franchise. Because in a previous episode, I went on a little bit of a tirade about how Square Enix settled for less and made the Final Fantasy VII series less than it could have been. And I'd done some soul-searching, and I kind of regret going on that tirade. I have these delusions of grandeur of being a video game mogul, and past that, sort of a modern-day Grecian scholar of video game philosophy. And that means looking at everything in terms of what value it can bring to the medium and the world on the whole. And for me to not get over something so simple as the direction of Final Fantasy VII and to completely fly off the handle, that goes against that. I am nothing if not flawed, and I am constantly trying to refine the way I see things, and especially knee-jerk reactions, because I know knee-jerk reactions can be definitive for a person's personality. After all, the way gamers are nowadays, there is a lot of knee-jerk in there. Defensive reactions, and just protectiveness over what has been and fear of what could be. Nothing represents this more than the direction of Final Fantasy VII after Final Fantasy VII. I've said before that Cloud has become a shadow of his former self, and condemning, I just don't think condemning is a good thing to do in any situation. You're just giving your opinion on the topic. And and you can condemn if you're open to other ideas. If you aren't, then you're just venting on people. And there are times to vent, and there are times not to vent. But if all you want to do is get your idea out there without giving the other side a chance to refute, then that just isn't good for communication. Like I said, I've done some soul searching, and especially some reading up on Wikipedia articles, or just wiki articles, and interviews. And on the topic of Cloud's character change, one of the higher-ups in Square Enix said that Cloud did end Final Fantasy VII as a more upbeat character, but for subsequent appearances, they gave him a more familiar character. And I don't know about you, but I am more familiar with the cocky, sure Cloud. But I think I know what he means by familiar. He means familiar in that more people can associate with him, can feel for him, can relate with him. Because his story is, after these events, after saving the planet, after defeating Sephiroth, Cloud can now fully recognize the weight of what's happened in his life. He remembers Zack, he remembers Aeris, both of which have died right in front of him. And associated with that, feelings of helplessness, meh, why bother, and just reflecting on what he's done and what he could do. And when you're in such deep thought, that lends itself to a kind of, I don't want to say nonchalant, but just a lack of caring. And I'm not saying his cool lack of caring like at the beginning of the game. I mean a genuine, why bother attitude. And he is just so wrapped up in his own thoughts, his own self-doubts, that it leaves him in this state of, I guess you could say, sort of depression. One major theme in Final Fantasy VII is realism, and that not everything is fair in the world. I mean, Aeris' death was far from fair. She didn't go in there saying, I'm going to sacrifice myself for the good of the world. No. Just like death can be in real life, Aeris' death was a seemingly arbitrary event that is very unfair. And also unfair is what has happened to Cloud, his change in personality. Post-traumatic stress does happen, and it takes a variety of forms. It just so happens that the Cloud that we know now is a result of his post-traumatic stress, and also the fact that in Advent Children, he contracted geostigma, which is a disease, so that wouldn't help very much. I still don't like what they've done with the character and what sort of legacy he's creating, especially when it comes to fan interpretation of what and who Cloud is. Cloud is seen as an overtly emotional character who doesn't care for anything and is sad all the time. And worse, Sephiroth is seen as a mama's boy. I mean, yes, he is obsessed over his mother, but he really was more obsessed about becoming the new god, taking over for Genova's legacy, and punishing the people of the planet for what they've done to him. I don't really know what else to say. This seems like I'm really ragging on the fans, and in a way, that kind of is what I am doing. But that's why I made this Let's Play, to give my take on everything, and give you I guess, a purish take on what was intended for this franchise. And given that, they haven't done too bad of a job maintaining Final Fantasy VII. It could have been a lot worse. It's just tragic is all, that Cloud Strife is now the quintessential emo pretty boy character, when it was supposed to be more complex than that. And I don't really know what's to be gained from this little talk I've given to you, other than just to not go off of knee-jerk reactions, to think about intentions, and try to give a little respect for what people are trying to do. And that can echo on into the later Final Fantasy games. And I'm not saying that everything is suddenly good and great, but there is value everywhere. And that to call the entirety of something junk or worthless just doesn't do all the justice to the people who put in the hard work, and to our medium at large. I'm also not saying to look at everything with a naive outlook and just think everything is great, but try to have a discerning eye and think for yourself. Try to think deeper about things. I don't really know where I'm going with this, or maybe I do, but if you can grab any little tidbit of outlook or information out of this, that will be great. Now, if you are still listening to me, thank you very much for taking interest in my thoughts and my little post-play vlog here. And for that, I'm going to give you a little teaser of what's going to happen next. So, next time you see me, I will have embarked on a quest for glory. Until then, game over.